At that moment, as I looked to the other side of the stable, I spotted a man staring at me, and his forehead had something that seemed like a sign of blasphemy. He was dressed in white, holding a book in his hands. That's when he started uttering words in a language I knew. It seemed like witchcraft, but in some parts, he spoke of things like human sacrifice, taking me as a sacrifice, and paying a debt. His face took on a different form, and 2 horns began to grow from his head. I was desperate. I had never felt so much fear in my entire life. It was like a horror movie, but it was real. I thought about running away, but I still had no strength, and a bit of blood was coming out of me. At that moment, he looked at the horse Juan and uttered some words. After that, Juan's fur began to darken, and his eyes turned completely black. Something resembling human arms emerged from his thighs, and his hands held chains. Strange beings, 2 large and crawling on the ground like demons, started appearing around him. It was a disturbing sight. I called out Juan's name, but he didn't respond because he was no longer himself. In that moment, I remembered what my sister Rebecca had told me some time ago, right after the tragic incident with the pigs. She had told me she saw something huge behind me, and Dad had made a deal with an entity for her to come back to life, willing to pay any price. At the time, I didn't believe her words, but now things started to make sense. As Juan approached me, the atmosphere became heavy, with a sense of oppression in the air. He stared fixedly at me, and to make matters worse, I was still without clothes. It seemed like he wanted to possess me, and enter my body with that enormous thing crawling on the ground. I was completely paralyzed with fear, and when I realized it, it was too late. It was already inside me, and this time, unlike in my dream, it was sucking the life out of me. I screamed for my father, but he didn't appear. I started screaming to God, begging for his help and mercy, but it seemed like he wasn't listening. The pain was unbearable, I was losing my strength, and I felt like I was about to die. I thought this would be the end for me, and that's when something unexpected happened. If you want to hear the final part of my story, leave your comment here on the video. And to learn more details about who that being with the sign is, watch my sister Rebecca's story, as that's where everything began. It was immense. I was already losing my strength and feeling that I was about to die, and that's when my father entered the stable holding his shotgun. However, upon seeing what it was, he realized that his weapon would be of no use to him. Desperate with what he saw, he begged Zazel to stop, but he responded, "You agreed to pay any price." My father offered his own life in exchange for mine, but the entity replied, "What use is the life of an old and impure man like you? But if you give me a sacrifice, the life of your wife and your daughter." He compared your daughter, Sarah. The entity said this in a mocking tone. My father, angered by his words, raised his shotgun and fired at me. My life was saved before the final act was consummated, freeing me from that cruel fate. Then, he shot himself, taking his own life. This caused much anger in Asel, as my father had thwarted his plans. By that time, my soul had already left my body, and I was heading towards the light. When I looked down, I saw my father's soul being dragged beneath the ground by those infernal creatures, which caused me great sadness, because I knew he was a good man. But I believe that was the price he paid for making a pact with an entity. Unfortunately, my story did not have a happy ending, but it wasn't all bad either, as now I was at peace. To the local authorities, my father was declared a murderer who took the life of his own daughter and then his own. My father and I were buried in the municipal cemetery of Cadaval in Portugal. The only person who knows the truth of what happened is my sister, Rebecca. She was discharged from the hospital and moved with my mother to the capital. After that, they were never seen again. Despite what was said by the local authorities, to this day, the circumstances of my death remain a mystery throughout the town. The horse Juan was never found. However, some people claim to have seen a horse with something enormous dragging along the ground on our old property. This fact cannot be confirmed. But do you think my father deserved this sad ending? Let me know in the comments.